What before we get into the month, what's today good for?
We're on the threshold of summer, right? Summer begins
Hmm.
tomorrow. Technically, I mean, there's two major indicators that bring summer forward, and the first one is the fourth moon, which is the moon that we're going into, and that starts tomorrow. Um,
Okay.
so we're taking first steps, and
Hmm.
it's really about respecting boundaries today and recognizing the value of the routine things that you've set in motion already and putting the energy is building, so you want to put your energy into the things that you already have established. So, and it's not
Okay.
like it's not like tangents are the end of the world. I
Hmm.
wrote that today too. Don't worry about tangents. Like if you get into a tangent, just be aware that if you get pushback, you should be like, hey, cool. Like, I'm not going to double down. I think the thing that was most important that I wrote today was like, instead of doubling down, double check.
You know, treat your tangents like if I'm going to bring me into this. Treat your tangents like every person I ever talked to from the 90s up until now is whenever they're in pain and you say, well, um, maybe you should stop drinking. They're like, okay, I'll see you later.
Sure. Yeah. And that's where it
Yeah.
gets kind of complicated because
Yeah.
like I think one of the interesting things about the fourth moon is that this is a Buddhist moon. This is technically in the cosmology of the Tongshu, the fourth moon is considered to be the Buddhist moon. And yes.
I'm going to tell everybody, y'all missed a wonderful thing, but there's two things that are going on. First off,
Mm.
my bucket is the exact same color as Scott's shirt. Okay.
Very
And then,
close. Yeah.
but there's another thing when you say the Buddhist moon. I like this guy. Hold on.
The Buddhist.
Here. I sit next to this little guy. Oh, you can't see him.
Oh,
He's not perfect.
nice. Oh, that's like
Put it-
I can't remember the
He's
Japanese.
like a little, yeah, he's this little smiley, little hands crossed. And if anyone is listening, go ahead and, I mean, I guess I could use Google for that, but go ahead and teach me how to not make this background blurry.
That's basically your guardian of the growth that's happening
Mhm.
there. And so this is the time of year where you make offerings to that little guardian, or just rub its head, like whatever you're called to do. Like this is the way you honor the
Mhm.
spirits and all the different realms that are happening right now, which is also a big part of the fourth moon, is the recognition that it's not just humans that are thriving here.
Mhm.
There's layers to this stuff, in terms of
Mhm.
nature, the nature that we mutually occupy, and everything is getting activated. So that's why, when you're thinking about Chinese culture at this time, and the cosmology is really focused on making sure everybody's good with each other. Like
Mhm.
everybody's feeling respected. It's not just the human alliances that we have, but a relationship we have with our surroundings. Like everybody's being seen and respected and fed and heard, etc. Like that we have a kind of harmonious conditions for growth. You know,
Mhm.
so.
Well, okay. So, I want to, before we get started into the whole thing,
Hmm.
first off, like the eight piece and the Yama system,
Yeah, super
they've
looking
been,
forward to this.
yeah, they've been blowing up and I want, I just kind of want to like put out there, like I've been doing these things where it's like I'm bringing, you might have seen that video that I put up with me working with the mechanics.
Yeah.
I'm working with some tree climbers, some tree people today. I did a bunch of farmers yesterday. I just have this thing where it's like I always wanted to help people, and I've just did the math, and like mathematically speaking, the quickest way to help 100 people, help 100 children, help 100 whatever, is to help one farmer. And
Mm.
so if we want to like help the most, it's like let's point a little bit of energy, maybe a little time in our year, towards someone that's like working with land or working with young people or something like that. And
Right.
so this has been a very enriching and nourishing month for me. In our business, we're always looking for CEOs, you know what I mean?
Right.
They're always going for the elite. And it's
Mm.
like,
Yeah.
yet for some reason, I think the most elite people are the people that can just put their hands on things and make legitimate change. And so it's like there's not an elitist here. It's like this was made by farmers. This was made, so that's kind of the end of my rant, but it's been amazing. And
Mm.
like y'all hit me up if you want to do any training, and hit Scott up if you want to do any stuff. So what are we going
Readings and
into?
such. Yeah, I mean, just to compliment on what you're talking about, like uh, yeah, it really just kind of depends on what you think productivity is. And we have this idealization around these elites, on a
Yeah.
cultural
Yeah.
level. and that they
Yeah.
need, they're dealing with the most, they need the most help, and like your help will actually make them more productive, right?
No.
And benefit more people, etc. And there's also kind of the proximity thing. So
Hmm.
proximal to power makes you important,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And yeah, I agree. I think that one of the just going back for me personally, like I come from farming people
Hmm.
in Iowa, and I've always been very attentive or tuned, at least thinking about like the changes that our country has done to the farming community since the 70s, and
Hmm.
and how they've just been ruinous, essentially. I mean,
Hmm.
they've been, consolidating power for sure and making elites a lot of money, especially when you
Hmm.
financialize everything. But at the same time, you're neutering the heart of your culture, which
Yeah.
is, there is no culture without agriculture. And that is, that's really the basis of all human culture, is like all benefit comes from the earth. So
Yeah.
whether I'm getting $1 million or a brand new car or food on the table, it all comes from the earth. So you
Yeah. There's
can't.
no capital that doesn't start as natural capital.
Yeah.
Okay. What are we going into? And I know you got to
Okay.
get on the road, and I'm about to be melted by the sun.
So we are going into the first moon of summer, as I mentioned. It's
Hmm.
essentially the fourth moon of every year is a snake moon, which is
Hmm.
natively fire. And
Yeah.
in this particular case, it's a metal snake moon.
Hmm.
So what I would say is that this is a snake moon in a snake year. So I'm going to do my best to try to be concise here, but a lot of this is pretty
Hmm.
esoteric, to be honest, because
Hmm.
essentially what we're speaking of is a kind of what the word I would use is resultant, the kind of
Hmm.
resultant situation. And what that means is like
Thank you.
fire is going to be getting its footing, right? So
Okay.
we're going in the season of fire, and it needs to get its footing.
Okay.
So right now in the first week of the fourth moon is still transitional. Like fire hasn't
Yeah.
really hit. But once it does hit, it's kind of like the analogies I've been using is like it's a plane taking off. It's hard to change
Hmm.
directions once you're airborne, right? Like
Hmm.
you're off, and so you either land safely because you're well prepared, or you crash, right? So that one of the things that's very crucial to understand about the Chinese cosmology is that fire in summer is actually seen as a time of danger. So you actually do have to, yes, Matt.
It reminds me of this time that I I caught my hair on fire once, right? Boom.
Okay.
But then this other time, my friend leaned over when I was a kid, and I had my lighter going, and she was a rock chick, and she had a bunch of Aquanet and hairspray on, and then caught
Oh
her hair on
shit.
fire.
Oh my God. Aquanet. That's like
And
a,
once you have you have just a couple seconds until it
yeah,
starts like traveling,
it just takes off. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Anyways, I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So that's the idea. Like, I think the phrase that Ming always uses is fire is a wonder, but also a danger. Right. So
Mhm.
how do you
Yeah.
harness this capacity is really the biggest question of the summer season, any summer season.
Hmm.
So when you have this modified by metal, what I would say very concisely is that there is the increased agitation of the summer season makes us much more vulnerable, because the situation's modified by metal, much more vulnerable to the potentials of fixation, right?
Okay.
Which for in if that's taken to extremes, in the Chinese tradition, this is an indication of the presence of haunting or possession.
Hmm.
Because it's really important to understand that I think, as I was alluding to earlier, there's many other realms that are happening here, and we're not the only ones being activated. Like everything's being activated, right? So all the different realms, potential ghosts and demons. Again, fire is the reason is associated with demons, and not so much ghosts, but with demons. So that is the traditional understanding of the season of fire. It's like going into summer is not, it's the reason why you should go relax at the lake.
Hmm. Hmm.
You should chill, like you should chill. Like there's, in wintertime, we are, when yang goes inside to be stored, we should animate yang on the inside with self-reflection in preserving our heat. We should be circulating it, right? So that's the idea in the wintertime. In the summertime, we should nourish yin inside because now yin is gone inside because yang is so prevalent outside, right? So we should nourish that with like a peaceful appreciation in preserving our fluids. So in other words, we don't want to overdo it on stimulants because the energy is available. It's like actually
Mhm.
in the ecosystem. So we shouldn't need to kind of push our own yang. We should be harnessing that yang. And we don't want to have, like, as Ming would say, the aspirations of a platoon, right? Of
Mhm.
people. Because if we have all of this huge wish list, then yin can't keep up. Our own capacity can't keep up. This is why the dragon moon is always so important. And that's why when we were talking about the year, even the year from wood dragon to wood snake, it's understanding that there is a resultant capacity that kind of flows into the snake year from the dragon. And that's true in the seasons as well. So when we do all this authentication work, which is to essentially, as we mentioned last moon, focus on the process and not the result. What are the related? How are what is the context of our relatedness? All of these things kind of build an authenticity and a sense of integrity for how things actually happen, right? So it's a very important, dragon moon is a very important kind of staging time to look at what's actually doable, like, and
Mhm.
go into that and be grateful for that instead. And so you should in some ways be dropping back into what you can actually do. And when you do that in the snake moon, progress and the forward moving nature of the season, this is just to bring you forward, with that kind of stuff. It shouldn't necessarily need to push so hard. It should be pulling you forward kind of automatically. And that's what I call like self-evident. Things are like looking for things that are self-evident. Like it's self-evidently the case that, this, it should go like this, so there is a kind of, not necessarily needing to make big decisions. Like we should just be pulled forward by the authentication that we did last moon. It should just be sort of naturally unfolding. The road just sort of unfolds in front of you. Um, so that's why it's a Buddhist moon. It's one of the reasons why it's considered a Buddhist moon is because it is related to this kind of notion of karma or your fate, right? So you have, everyone has a fate, not just the fate that's the big cycle fate of your life, but the small cycles of fate that you've started this year, or even in the day. Like we get up, we have breakfast, like we set things in motion that then at the end of the day come to a close and the cycle repeats itself. Well, there's smaller cycles of the daily and then bigger cycles of the season that are happening right now. So it's a time for, especially in this first week, because it's still transitioning. Earth is still transitioning us to fire. So next Monday, it'll be full on into summer. So
Mhm.
this is kind of like the last week to get your ducks in a row, like to really feel out like what's really going on for you. And don't be afraid to like, well, okay, that may I have to save that for next year, or let's see what happens with that. And like, let's really be grateful for the things that we know are actually happening. That would be the
Can we?
best thing to do.
Okay, so you're saying you want us to figure out like what's going on with us, like what do we have already in place? Because
What's moving? Yeah,
that's
what's
yeah,
moving?
because that's the thing that kind of can burst into flames and start moving. Is that kind of
I think it's yes, exactly. I mean, you want to control burn, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
remember,
yeah.
you and I are old enough to remember the Challenger, right? Like you don't want to like blow up mid sky. You want to
Let's have a
control
moment.
burn.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah McAuliffe, you're not forgotten.
Teacher, you're
You're
not
not
forgotten.
forgotten,
You're
Sarah
definitely
McAuliffe.
not forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember watching
Um,
that. I was
me
I
too.
was I was in my I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I was gifted. I was in my gifted class. They checked us out of class to where we could watch it, and then my teacher was like, "This is a big deal, and you guys are the nerd kids, and check this out."
Oh, what?
And then
And
we
then
just
it.
watched it blow up. I mean, I'm not laughing because it's like, here's the thing. Like, I remember that happened, and then like shortly after that, we went to SeaWorld, and then the guy gets on Shamu's nose and dives off, and Shamu just stayed on the surface, and the guy like dove right onto the back of Shamu and right? So it's just like this whole thing around,
Whoa,
hey,
same
y'all,
day?
maybe y'all need, no, this is like, but I just remember as
Oh,
like this
yeah.
series of events keeps happening around your watch. You're like watching spectacular things just
Right,
end really. Yeah. And I was like,
right, 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 right.
and I'm like, I'm going into stunts.
Right, 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 right. No, I
But
remember that
yeah.
too. I was sent, we were sent home.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
teacher was like, you can go home. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
That really
crazy.
sunk in the phrase that my dad, because in his thing, he was into disarming bomb. He was a bomb disposalman, right? Bomb guy.
Uh,
And he'd be like, yeah, it's all fun till it isn't. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, that's what that means. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really fun. I'm riding
yeah.
on a whale. I'm going into space. Yeah. So
Right, right, right,
anyways.
right.
All right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's a great that's a great theme, for the moon. It's like it's all fun
Mhm.
until it isn't. I think that
Yeah.
it's it's complicated. It's going
Hmm.
to be complicated because you've got small cycles and big cycles sort of playing themselves out. And one of
Hmm.
the big things that we were talking about with respect to the snake year in general is that there was this kind of continuity of the dragon. There was like the
Hmm.
dragon's tail that was expressing through the first part of the snake moon. And this is,
Hmm.
you would consider to be kind of like the barbed end of the tail, right? So
Hmm.
this fourth moon is kind of like where things come to a head in some ways, or
Okay.
come to a point.
Yeah.
That's a potential in the season.
Mhm.
But the biggest sense of advice or empowerment that I could provide anybody in the fourth moon is just be transparent. Just be fully
Mhm.
transparent, because whether it's going well or if it's going poorly, your transparency is where it's at. That's actually
Yeah.
where all the power is at in this particular
Hmm.
moon. Even if you don't know
Hmm.
what the hell's happening and you're super confused. I mean, it's okay. It doesn't really it's not a bad thing, to be confused this moon, especially if you're one of the domestics who's
The
supposed to be confused.
the thing that yes, I'm a journaling nut,
Mm,
and I work, I mean, a lot of my work right now
mm.
on Zoom and is with people journaling, and
Yeah.
um I always want to share that
Okay.
stuff, but you can't, because it's like it's really personal for people. So it's, it's like, um and and I do feel that 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 act of like journaling, and it, because it is a place you can be transparent with yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I have my issue with, there's some people that are getting into like the body reading stuff on Instagram, and I'm on that algorithm, and and it's like I learned a lot of that stuff, but the way I learned it was to view myself, right? And
Mm,
not to walk around and view the whole world. It's like you're not
mm.
Sherlock Holmes, like walking into a room being like, I can tell by the shininess of your
Right.
sleeve that shut up, dude. Like you're no one, you're gonna
Because your
stress
because
yourself
your
out.
embodiment is actually contributing to the situation as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so to be able to use that, and to be able to like kind of get your judgments out of the way, to where
Yeah.
you can be relative, because where you can be more transparent,
Yeah.
and see that this isn't happening, and I'm hiding from it because like the status that drives me, or I'm afraid of
Yeah.
this happening. It's like, or maybe I don't want to jinx it because I'm superstitious. It doesn't matter, but it's like to be able to wrap your head around those
Yeah.
things is
Yeah.
is it's so the kind of question that I ask sometimes with people is like, "How you doing?" And then like, "Cool," and I'm like, "Cool. How you really doing?" Yeah. Now, how are you really doing? You know what I
Really,
mean?
really good.
Yeah. It's like, "How you doing?" And just
Yeah,
kind of
right,
keep
right, right.
asking it. It's really fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, ask
Yeah.
three times, right? Ask
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
times. That's how
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
actually get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, all of these things, the word for that from this tradition standpoint, they're all cofactors. It's a
Yeah.
cofactor,
Mhm.
and we're surrounded by cofactors continuously. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the reasons why, the cosmology of the Tongshu, this particular cosmology, is so focused on ritual,
Mhm.
because we can never know, especially going into the summer where everything is like
Mhm.
greatly activated. There's no guarantee for
Mhm.
success ever, so we can never really know what we're doing is going to be successful, or how things are going to turn out. We can never really know. But through ritual, this is a Confucian
Yeah.
approach to life. Through ritual, we develop confidence. We develop some sense of confidence. And
Yeah.
ritual, another way of talking about ritual is routine, and things that are
Yeah.
and cultivating those things that have a sense of continuity and regularity in their appearance. Right. This is the reason
Yeah.
why this particular astrological system has no interest, or very little interest, in eclipses, because they don't really happen that often. So why would you hitch your aspirations to an eclipse? Like you want
Hmm.
to hit your aspirations to the cycles of the moon or the
Yeah.
occurrence of the seasons because you get immediate feedback, and then it is that immediate feedback, which is essentially another word for that is omenology, like looking at the omens being in, and it sounds woo, to our culture, but it's actually one of the oldest things we do as human beings is to
Hmm.
pay attention, to like, oh, I'm not getting good feedback on this. Let's try it a different way, or make more
Yeah.
offerings, or confer with my allies and look at the cofactors of the situation before I make an assumption about how it's supposed to turn out. So
There's
that's why, yeah.
Well, there's something really that you said something cool right there. It's like, I got this one client right now. He's down in South America, and a lot of stuff wasn't working, and he goes big things. He's a big business guy, and and I was like, well, with this stuff, it's about like little check-ins because you're retuning in with a
Yeah.
conversation, right? Like
Right,
in
right.
businesses and constructs, you can have like desired outcomes. So you can kind of shove things into that direction. You can kind of tugboat them, you shove them in and up. But with this, it's sort of like it's uncertain, right? So the heart has to turn on and you got to get in a conversation, right? You're learning
Yeah,
about yourself again.
right.
And so, yeah, so I was like, so instead of taking your 20 minutes or instead of taking an hour a day and just judging yourself because you don't know how to fill it, we're taking
Mm,
2 minutes a day, like 4 or 5 times a day, 2 minutes
mm,
and 5 minutes. And now
mhm.
he's getting up to, he's like, once you take that 2 minutes, that can easily become 3, 5, 10, 20. But if
Yeah,
you block off, like a CEO, like here's an hour of it's like you haven't built that habit yet.
right,
and
right, right.
and
Yeah,
and a lot of times what we forget is the habit that we've built is chasing having that habit, chasing having
right.
that routine,
Or
right?
being stimulated in some
Yeah.
way, like
Yeah.
constantly being stimulated in some way.
Mhm.
Yeah, it reminds me of the difference between formal and informal practice. That is, like
Mm.
the formal practice and meditation
Yeah.
is to sit still for an hour,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and stop kicking and screaming. And
Yeah.
the informal practice is all the time, like
Yeah.
moment to moment, here and there. It's like you can measure it or not measure it, but like it's always
Hmm.
available as an
Hmm.
informal practice, never turns off. Right.
Yeah.
So then your meditation practice is never separate from what your life is. And it was never
Yeah.
supposed to be at all. So the formal practice helps you kind of drop into the informal practice.
Yeah.
Right. And the informal practice keeps you in reminding of the formal practice. Right. So they work
Yeah,
together.
well, and it also helps you build a relationship with it. It's kind of like if anyone has ever been part of a class or something, you have the teacher and you have the whole thing, but then
Yeah.
then you
There's
get
a
your
structure.
study partners and you get your
Yeah. Mhm.
study group and
Yeah.
you get it's like that's the informal stuff where you guys are getting together and
Yeah.
I
Well, that's why
noticed
they
that a
call
lot
it
when
a
I was
jha. That's why they call it a
mm,
jha, right? Like all the martial arts families or meditation, they're all families. So you have your
okay.
brothers and sisters that are also
Ja
uh,
is way too. I feel
jha.
like I was just hanging out with some
Oh,
reggae
okay.
musicians
Sorry.
last
Yeah.
night.
Right away. Yeah.
I'm gonna get out of the sun real
Oh,
quick.
yeah. The sun. Yep.
Come with, guys, come with me.
Mhm.
I'm going up on the porch.
Okay.
And get up on. Get out. I was protected by this beautiful mango tree, and now the sun has figured out a way to
And
work itself
oh,
around
yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah,
overwhelmed it.
yeah. The
Yeah.
sun is like, I got it. Yeah, mango tree, bobbing and weaving. Let's let people see how this stuff can be put into action. So I would love to just ask you. Okay, so give us a real life example. How are you preparing for this? How are you being transparent? How are you gonna, yeah, like how's the teacher gonna let this unfold?
Ah, for me, as a double pig going into a double snake moon, there's a lot
Mhm.
of I benefit greatly by reducing my ambition. You have to really look at what you're starting with. And if I'm speaking on, what your actual condition is, and that should be
Mhm.
pretty clear by now. It should be really clear, especially coming into the third moon, to really digest what your actual situation is. And I would
Okay.
say there's really no reason to stop that process. You can't continue with that discovery, because yang, it's not like, most people would be like, this doesn't feel like summer. And like, I get it, because we understand summer as Memorial Day to Labor Day, right? In this culture, when it's like, it's already gotten pretty hot, like, and it's,
Mhm.
it's one holiday to the next, and that's
Mhm.
why we bookend things. And obviously, this calendar looks at the emergence of summer because once you're airborne and you're at a
Uh,
high altitude, like your flight and the turbulence of your flight is going to be determined by the steps you did before.
I'm just
Right.
saying
Right.
but that's what you're saying. It's like it's the emergence. We see summer coming, but that'd be like sitting there,
Yeah.
you know, like you're looking out at a storm cloud and you're just standing in the middle of your not raining field, like with an umbrella. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's like
In some
the
ways,
storm's
yeah.
coming. Yeah.
I
But you're
mean,
still preparing.
yeah, there's still some preparing that's happening here.
Hmm.
Again, you're like about to take off and then ascend. But like
Hmm.
literally starting next Monday is going to feel different. It's going to feel like, okay, I can do this. And
Hmm.
like, so that kind of feeling pulled forward, by the rising
Yeah.
yang
Yeah.
is very good.
Hmm.
Just understand that it's not at full power yet,
Hmm.
so don't like hyper caffeinate yourself to get ahead of the curve, right? Like actually ride, what's available into, what's available, like in work it step by step instead of this is very reminiscent of what we were talking about last moon in terms of if you have metrics and you have ideals, right?
Hmm.
Understand those things are limitations.
Hmm.
There are clear limitations to your situation. They are not empowerments. They're not half the empowerment that you think they are, right? Like they
Hmm.
are limitations to your situation. So allow yourself some flexibility. Like I said in the beginning, fixation. It's one thing to be like kind of focused, but if you get into a place of fixation and you take that to extremes, then you're probably harboring a ghost of some kind. It's like when you can't look outside your fixation, that's not being human. You're tripping up there. So
There's one of the videos that I just loaded last week up on the site, which it's not up, guys. Sorry about that because mobility mindset and Yama, that's the site's being broken up into those three things. And it's been a lot of work on my end, and I don't really have internet out here. Like this is a just kind of
right,
a phone call. Um,
right,
but one of the mindset work is all around the journaling stuff, but then mindset, situational awareness, but then there's the body mapping and the path to healing arts
this is great.
turned in,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But one of them is the pain continuum, where it's tension builds fixation, builds stagnation. And so
right,
like tension, just an idea, just a little bit of rumination, a little bit of right, can move into fixation if we don't know how to recognize it. But if you're fixated on something, you keep going on you can get possessed by it, then you become stagnant. And then when you're
right.
stagnant, you need external medicine in order to intervene, in order because stagnant is rotten and you need kind of help to get out of that. So
Yeah,
fixation is that
yeah,
start of that possession is, tension is just discomfort sometimes. But
yeah.
then
Anxiety.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
But then once you start ruminating, you start doing all this stuff. Yeah. You don't once you get to fixation, check it because it can
right.
become stagnant.
So you can't exhaust your
Yeah.
potential, right? That's
Yeah.
that's one of the things, and the way that is described here is like it's depleting yin. So if you're not, essentially nourishing yin on the inside, right, and
Hmm.
preserving fluids and preserving your potential through either peaceful appreciation, gratitude, rest,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
just general like yeah, just like going to the beach and just seeing all the splendor. I mean,
Hmm.
the splendor of nature is not something that needs to be taken advantage of. It's actually just there. Like
Yeah.
we're not here to dominate the situation and to extract, what we want. I
Yeah.
mean, this is one of the basic fundamental assumptions of the culture that makes everything very it's a major cofactor that should be addressed, in
Yeah.
our daily life. So if I think that, oh, it's a beautiful day, there's a lot of energy, and my first thought is, what can I get done? Like
Yeah.
maybe that's something to question. Is there something that needs to be done? Like, and where does that
Hmm.
precedent come from? What are the cofactors involved? It's much more engaging. We're not really trained to do that, but this was the invitation from the first two moons into the third moon, is to really kind of delve into all the cofactors that surround your life and how they inform our aspirations, and whether or not our aspirations actually fit into the bigger picture, or there's some kind of projected fantasy that we can really get fixated on. And when we do that, physiologically speaking, we're depleting our yin, And then yes, we get stuck. Yin can't keep up. It gets locked like gears on a bike, right? It just the engine won't turn, right? And then all we can do is feed ourselves with stimulants to keep going. And then that
Mhm.
leads to, as Ming would describe, chi depletion, and then you can't, then you're not responsive to treatment. And that's like chronic debilitating disease, right? That's the source. And in Ming's teaching, this is the time of year where we basically reaffirm all those chronic conditions, like by doubling down on our aggression. But that also means that this is a chance where we could be like, maybe not, like maybe I can back off or
Mhm.
engage in some sort of contemplative practices that actually help kind of break down the detritus of our thinking, right? So that's also oh yeah, not be stuck. Right? It's the gunk, it's the
Say detritus
plaque,
again. Say
the
detritus again.
detritus. Yeah, it's like plaque. It's the plaque. It gets us stuck in our patterns. Right. So this is in this last week this is a lot of opportunity for us to kind of break that shit up. And
You
that's
done? I had to go to the dentist the other day, and they
oh,
probably like found a little bit of detritus.
So, I mean, and
Mhm.
then after that, then you have this kind of, you do have a natural flow. I mean, I think that it would be, if you're not experiencing that, of just like kind of naturally being pulled forward, feeling more energized, being able to do more, in your practice, to kind of gradually and gently sort of expand, what you're working on in your practice. It's a physical
Mhm.
practice, or like how much you can handle in terms of your workload. Because then after this, we do get the horse, which is
Mhm.
multitasking.
Go.
It's time to
Yeah, yeah.
multi and time to go. But like, if we haven't really prepared ourselves fully to be able to handle yang when it's fully activated, yeah, you get trampled, like, and you can't keep
Mhm.
up. And then you make all these conclusions. I always say that a haunting is not in the squandering or the mistake. The haunting is the judgment that you make about it.
So I don't run out of space on my phone here.
Yeah, yeah.
How? Yeah. So let's do the trines real
Married or
quick,
married.
and let's
Yeah.
see. Yeah, yeah. Give them some give folks some good advice. And you guys don't know this about Scott, but Scott for many years was for Sweat Lodge is like the keeper of the fire. He was like
True.
he's
Yeah.
this is his thing. He's all about the
Fire.
controlled burn. So
Yes,
that
absolutely necessary. Yeah. I
tell
mean, you have to
everyone what to do.
contain the prayer. Yeah, you have to contain the prayer. Like containment in any kind of ritual space is number one, number A and number Z, and a couple ones in between, just to like make sure that everything is contained. Like you have to be able to, if you're going to work, especially if you work with subtle, ceremonial energies, containment is like, if you don't have containment, you don't have a ritual, especially in this moon because of the qualities of the metal snake. Discerning your human realm from the other realms, super key. So if you got somebody who's just
Mm,
spinning nonsense at you and feels like they're
yeah.
not there, they're not there. So like you need to have the boundaries with that. Yes, Matt.
We have to be able to differentiate the difference between a catharsis and then the ritual, right? So it's like because the catharsis can be part of it. It's like crack the egg to make the omelet kind of thing. It's like there is
Absolutely.
a part of it where you're, because sometimes the catharsis comes after, sometimes it comes before, but it can feel very spiritual because you're like releasing something that
Yeah.
maybe had been pinned up.
Right.
But that's the cathartic moment,
Mhm.
and that's what leads to the I don't know if you guys, most of y'all never read this blog post that I did, but with humans a lot of times we're the storm before the calm, not the calm before the storm, right? Because a lot of times we
Okay. Yeah.
have yeah, you want to like have that storm, so you go on your motorcycle ride across South America, or you go to Burning Man, or you come back and you're like, oh,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
you're like, you know what, maybe we should like meditate, you know what I mean? And so that's kind
Yeah,
of what
I
I'm,
mean,
yeah.
and everybody who's a practitioner is using the word of integration. Like, so they
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
aware of what it need of they are aware of integration. But I think that, and that is a positive step that requires its own containment.
Hmm.
But I think it's continuously the case that, revelation porn is a danger, like it is a thing, so
Yeah.
like in the Chinese system, I'll just say it right now, like human is what happens in the calm,
Hmm.
in this particular cosmology.
Yeah.
The storm is yes, you
Yeah,
have
it's a
to
it's a
weather it,
tangent possession. Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you want to look at what is has continuity, because the continuity is actually what gets you through the storm. Who does well
Mhm.
in this kind of environment? So I'll go out on a limb here and say that the earthly branch to watch is the rabbit, because the rabbit can be really enabled and empowered here if they're well situated. If they understand what their containment is, they can feel this kind of their naturally intuitive capacities can become borderline sort of paranormal or psychic, right? Like, and what they
Mhm.
feel is they should pay attention to what they feel. And if they feel like a lot of fear, then they should get the hell out of there. Because
Mhm.
there are influences that they should be aware of, and like where they place themselves and what communities are available to them. They should be very, very discerning in that respect. But to the extent that they are, and they can have like a sense of relatedness, they can get grounded, with their perception. They can be very empowered, and I don't know if it would be necessarily productive of material stuff, but it would be very illuminating, for them. It could be
Mhm.
potentially incredibly illuminating. So rabbits
Okay.
are I think, the earthly branch to watch this particular moon. And the rest of the domestics should watch their step. Like the pig, especially, they can be sort of seduced and drawn out by this energy and then feel kind of abandoned, or like nobody knows what I'm talking about. So they can feel pretty awkward, like pigs are bound to feel a little bit awkward. So there's no problem. They can,
They feel a little detritus, feel a little
or just
detritus.
the ground is a little bit slippery, like, so they
Okay.
should just watch their step. It doesn't,
Okay.
it doesn't mean that I mean, if they have containment, if they have like the people that they are closest with, then that's good. They should stay with that. Same as for
Okay.
dogs. Both dogs and pigs kind of share this same, they're the most at risk for the barbs at the end of this dragon's tail
Mhm.
that is happening in
Okay.
this particular moon. So they're the ones that are most at risk for that. So they should be friends. you know, like they should both kind of stick with their friends, the people that they know. And if they've cultivated those relationships very well through both the rabbit and the dragon moons, they just sail through. You'd be good. The whole
Okay.
world will sort of energize around you, and you'll feel that sense of belonging. And wherever you feel that sense of belonging is pretty much where you should stay. Like, so,
Okay.
like going outside the boundaries, not so favorable, but I think both dogs and pigs will not necessarily be attracted to this moon anyway, so and I think instinctually they'll just be like, I'm good. Most likely,
Mhm.
and then goats could sort of get their head on a spinner, this moon. There's gonna be a lot of big patterns kind of unfolding and moving. Like, where the hell did that come from? So it's very easy to kind of go down the rabbit hole in terms of like conspiracies and social bodies of movements. So they're already pretty overstimulated, likely right now. Goats are probably pretty overstimulated right now. So
Mhm.
it would behoove goats to like have some personal time, to get body work done, or like take a social media holiday for a weekend, or, just do some kind of sensory deprivation to kind of re-stabilize like their sense of meaning and purpose, which is available for everyone. But there can be really a lot of distractions on the kind of big scale level that are available this moon. So goats should take care. So the one to watch is the rabbit, and then the domestics are a little bit at risk in different ways this moon. I'd say the ones that do generally the best are the snakes. But that's actually going to depend on their fate and the things that they've kind
Mhm.
of what the horse they're riding in on, because it's not there's a lot of revelation, for snakes this moon, a lot of revelation. And so that could be positive revelation and sense of reinforcement, or it could be um, dark, they have both of those available to them, so it's really going to depend on the things
Mhm.
that they've cultivated. But it's and similar to the rabbit, there's a lot of potential for revelation there. Oxen can, they are, as we mentioned last moon, they were the earthly branch to watch then. And now, like, benefit is continuing to escalate for them. So I think it would still very much be a good time for them, in alignment with many of the big changes or the subtle changes that are being made available to them in this snake year in general. So this is a good time for them and they should really pursue, like actually cultivate those things and have an appropriate sense of pacing. That's what I would recommend for oxen is a sense of pacing. Um, Roosters, similar to the snake, there is a lot of capacity for revelation, and if they could grow more comfortable in their skin, this particular moon, and that may require a level of molting. And some of that molting could be painful, like it is possible, but they should embrace it and go through it, because this would actually, I think this moon could be very beneficial for them to kind of fully get comfortable in their own skin.
Mm.
Um, and then as far as like the big power animals like your dragon, uh, yeah, dragon, monkey, and rats. So rats of those three, the dragon does the best, and it's because they're just following the thread of the things that they've been generating, but should expect things to kind of change around them a little bit, and just be prepared for that, like kind of like sidewinding, like where the hell that come from, or like sudden changes or things that they have to adapt to. But good for them is that they're really capable of doing that.
Mm.
So they might be surprised, but not really.
Okay.
And then, like no dragon's gonna be like, oh, that totally caught me off guard. Most dragons gonna be like, yeah, and like they could
Mhm.
they could put the pieces together even if it's after the fact, and they'll adapt just fine. But the sidewinding aspect of where we are right now is going to affect those three the most. Dragon, because they're engaged, right? Whereas the domestics maybe
Mhm.
not so engaged, and the other ones are kind of in a pattern. The dragon, rat, and the monkey are kind of more forward going, and so they're adapting to the kind of this sidewinding capacity. And rats should also watch their step, because they could get sort of mired in the details and they're more prone to the kind of fixation, as well as the monkey could sort of get spun out by their own fantasies, right? Like about how things should
Mm.
be. So it's a good idea for them to slow down and actually take a closer look, be slower about their pace. Um, you know, but if they have good containment, if everybody has good containment, everybody does well. If everybody has good containment, everybody does well. Right? They either get through or they advance. Like everybody does well, but it depends on the containment. And that's especially true for your dragon, or sorry, your tiger and your horse, which are a little bit more shoot first, ask questions later. So
Mhm. Mhm.
they're a little bit at risk here, because they'll race forward and figure it out as they go, and that's where the sidewinding, they might twist an ankle, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the tiger in particular, between those two, the tiger is more adept at this kind of strategy, this capacity for strategy. So it wouldn't surprise me none if tigers decide to disappear this moon and just kind of watch carefully. And then the horse is probably chomping at the bit, because after this, once we get into the horse moon, that's going to be their time to thrive. And then we're also going to start feeling this backdraft. It's going to gradually pull us toward the horse year. So horses are probably a little excited, and I would say, in kind of anticipating. So they should slow down. Yeah, like
Mm.
it's a marathon, not a sprint kind of vibe, right? And
Mm.
pace it out, get strategic, like the tiger, like get strategic, really strategic, like double check, especially in this last week. But
Yeah.
like I said, if everybody has good containment, everybody does well. But all 12 earthly branches have different types of containment that they gravitate towards, so they should stay within those sort of parameters of containment and be transparent.
Dude, by the way,
Yeah.
that was awesome. I just want to end just with like two, yeah, it's like I don't really, I haven't been talking about this a lot because it's, it's like even now, it's like I just want to break down in tears because I love Dennis with all, but I'm going to be
Oh,
back in the Bay for our dear friend. A lot of you guys know me through, and know Scott through the Hapkido Institute, and we trained out there, and
man,
I was part of that
that
place
was the
for
golden
over a
days, man. That
decade,
was
and
so great.
yeah.
So great.
Yeah, and one of the greatest people of all time was Dennis Roll. and he just passed
Mm.
away. And so I'll be back in the Bay next week, and I'm also going to be doing some clinics and stuff like that. So I'll send out,
Right.
but I haven't been putting anything out. I can't write anything about the guy. I can't say anything. All I can say is, he's one of the most special people in the world to me and to anyone that knows him. And
Yeah.
he's one of the few people that, some people won't make you want to be a better person, but I always say, like, when Dennis is in the room, you literally were a better person. You're just like a better person when he's
Yeah.
around. And
It's
exceptional
a
stuntman, exceptional writer, director, martial art, everything around the board. This guy was like top tier. And you don't watch movies where he wasn't a part of probably developing a lot of the stunt people that are in those movies. I mean, and yeah, I'm sure there's
mm,
some, in UK and stuff, but in America, the best of the best, a lot came from his little indie films and stuff. So
yeah.
I'm going to
It's a
put
great
some links
loss.
up, and
It's
you
a
guys
great
can go
loss.
on the blog. Yeah. And
Great loss.
the stunt people, which is kind of where I got a big start of mine. And yeah, so there's a talk on the blog. It was like a course to get emails and stuff when I first started, but now it's like I'm not trying to gain anything from this. I just want you guys to hear how
Mm,
amazing this guy was, and
mm,
so just go on the blog. It's a stunt people talk, with
yeah.
Ray and Troy, and
Yeah.
Scott knows all these people, so he
Yeah.
knows
Yeah.
how special they are.
Yeah. Really
Yeah,
special people.
and yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
but yeah.
Blessings. Yeah.
Yeah, and
To
there's a
Dennis.
list. Yeah, and there's a list to some of his movies, which you've never seen a Labor of Love, like this guy,
No.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
True.
Chico and Rico's Animal Avengers, where it's like two guys, one Dennis doesn't speak the whole thing, he's just a super kicker, and they go around LA and they save animals. They
Yeah.
can talk to animals, and they just say they use kung fu to save animals from being mistreated. So it's an amazing story. Rope a
Yeah.
Dope is like Groundhog Day, but
Rope-a-dope.
fighting
Oh my
with him and
God.
Eric Jacobus. Yeah, it's such a great film. And it's like it's a 7-minute movie, and now it's probably close to 1 million views now that he passed away. And then that's the other thing is like the reason why I work so much on cultivating who you are is so you can have your own taste. So you can be like Scott. So because Scott,
Mm.
when he would run it, he would see talent and he would say, "Come play my bar." And I've been
Oh.
that way
Mm.
too. And it's like when I see
Mm.
people, I'm like, I love what you do. Come play my, or let's do an album together, or I want to go to your shows. And to be able to see people before you have the public buy-in
Right.
is a freaking superpower. And
It's such
Dennis,
a yeah, such a
yeah,
lost
yeah,
art. It's such a lost art
mhm,
too. Yeah.
mhm.
Dennis was
Yeah,
big like
and
that.
that goes back to, yeah. Dennis was a hero to some of the best people. Like if you watch any Marvel flick, watch any, John Wick or any of those, like a lot of those people came from like him just putting him in his little
He
movie.
was yeah,
And
he was before any of those things took off. He was
yeah,
before
yeah,
all of it. All of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
out there doing that stuff and you were like,
hmm
"Whoa." And like people didn't even know what they were looking at
yeah,
back
yeah,
then. They didn't even know
yeah,
what they were looking at. Yeah. Like and now it's like everywhere.
hmm
Yeah.
yep.
And
So,
and
it's like,
obviously he was borrowing on the old Hong Kong genre,
yeah, yeah,
like who was doing that, like
mm,
Chinese cinema had been doing that, for
yeah.
years, and he just brought it here, and
Well, and
did their own flavor.
so the thing that was special about the stunt people is when you do it, like say you do taekwondo and I do jujitsu, and then this person does some, and I would come in with the Persian stuff or karate or whatever, we would never say, okay, fight this way. We would say, what do you do? Ooh, let's work with that. That's one
Yeah.
of the colors in our crayon
Right.
box, right?
Right.
And so it was all about, and that's kind of where I sort of lean towards. It's like, I don't want to
Mm.
change you. I want to see how I can adapt. Like, I want to see how we can use your language to make this art even better. And
Right.
that's why MMA work. That's why, so
Right.
much music evolves. And the amount of times that I've gone into another, team or whatever, and then I'll do something and they're like, oh, that's crap. There's my buddy, Andy Long, the Jackie Chan guy, the only guy Jackie Chan like
Mm.
sought out to put on his team. He like studied my kicks and he studied Dennis's kicks thoroughly, right?
Mm.
And I was on a job with him and I kicked, and the director said my kick wasn't good, right? And Andy was like, "You have some of the best kicks in the world." And I was like, yeah, but it's not good for this shot. It's in, and
Exactly.
and it's like because I was kicking like a fighter, not like a
Like an
show
action
superhero.
hero.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. And And so and so then he saw me go, how do you want me to kick? Show me an example or whatever. And instead, and embrace it, because I was excited to be able to learn a new way to kick. I wasn't
Right.
challenged. I wasn't like, I'll kill you with this kick, because technically, like,
Yeah, yeah,
power
yeah,
wise, yeah,
yeah.
way better than all the,
Right.
yeah.
Way
And
better.
Dennis
Yeah.
was that way too. The stunt people were that way. And it was just, so I'm kind of just, again, another tangent, but I'm just saying, is because when you cultivate your own taste, man, then you can support other people's taste.
Yeah.
But if all you know is Taylor Swift, and it's because everyone told you that they're good, it's like, sure, whatever. But like, what do you like? The amount of people, I asked 3 people last night, and they were on stage in a band. Who are they listening to right now? They had zero. They couldn't name one act that they were into, and I was
Interesting.
like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Like, Scott has a playlist of like 3,000 songs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I
So,
mean, it's really. I mean, just to piggyback on that, like the idea. I know Ming in this whole tradition, there's always like a very strong teaching around appetite in
mhm.
cultivating and developing or discovering appetite, to be in dialogue with appetite,
Yeah.
because that's actually the source of your humanity. Your embodiment, your engagement with the world sort of centers around this experience of
Yeah.
appetite. What I want to eat, how I want to experience life, where I want to go, who I
Mm.
want to talk to. And it is like a very dynamic it's a very dynamic pivot, in the sense that you're not the only one who's engaged with this appetite, and it's the exchange of your environment, but it's also the precedence of your history or your embodiment, your fates, all kind of working through this appetite. So some of this appetite is, of course, borrowed, and it actually gives you some kind of habitual way of engagement. But that means
Mhm.
it's also a focal point for releasing things, right, that you're no longer interested in, and to actually grow and transform, what we might say, mature as a human being.
Yeah.
So the kind of music, I might still listen to some songs that I really loved when I was 18, but it's not the bulk of the things that I'm
Yeah.
listening
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So like I have some kind of narrative around my own journey and my own cultivation, my own maturity as a human being. Turns out that all of this is just very important for the resolution of fate, for your engagement, with nature as a whole. Because there's, in springtime, you'd be shaking this thing up. Like, you should be trying this,
Yeah.
trying that, doing things that you have no interest in. I spent a week studying videos on math. I hate math, but like I was just
Mhm.
sort of like, I'm really curious about something I'm not good at
Mhm.
this. So like,
Yeah.
why don't I just get exposed to it and see what it feels like to be completely disabled? I have no idea what you're talking about. And like,
Yeah.
there's actually a really interesting enjoyment that comes from that. And it's also a seasonal calibration that makes you really recognize and appreciate what it is that you do choose and how you want to go forward in summer. Because if you're just doing things on habit, then it's not as nearly as fun. It's also not nearly as rewarding, and also it just depletes you, right? And you become
There's
fixated.
um there's the thing, what protected you when you're young will probably hurt you when you're older, right? I don't know if you guys know this about me, but right now you're listening to a conversation with the Gulf Coast Freestyle Jet Ski Champion 1989, sponsored by Key. And I was just I was
Just
just
putting
back,
it out there.
and that business is still going strong because of people like me representing and
Mm,
showing up. And I remember being out this beautiful lake camping. I drove for like, a day to get to this other side of the lake. But what I didn't know is the other side of the lake, miles away, was really easy. It was a boat ramp. And so I'm sitting there all peaceful, listening to jet skis fly by. And I was like, I don't like jet skis anymore. And I'm, and and yeah, I have no desire to ride a jet ski right now. I never thought I would say that, being from Florida and Panhandle,
right,
and being the
right.
1989 Gulf Coast Freestyle Jet Ski Champion. Sponsored by Key Sailing. And so yeah. Anyways, things change, our appetites
Things change.
change,
Right.
and enjoy that.
Yeah, you should enjoy that. It's how
Yeah.
you know you're alive.
Yeah, the amount of people that are hanging on to their youth, and I go, it's just playing with toys. Like one day you're playing with your GI Joes and your Barbies, and then one day you're not.
Right.
And
Right.
it just, what did it move to, right? Did it move to computers? Did it move to
Mm,
cars? Did it
yeah.
move to motorcycles? Like, what are your new toys? What is your new keg party?
No,
But all right, I gotta
it's
get
yeah.
out of here, dude.
Yeah,
I
me
could
too.
talk to you all day. It's not a time for tangents, and all I want to do is tangent right now.
And all we did was tangents.
Yeah. Just Dennis rule. Like that's all I want to say. Like just
Yeah, Dennis.
Dennis
Yeah.
rule is, I've never seen a person like this. He's a perfect unicorn in this world,
Check
and
out
one of
his
the most.
films. Go check him
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah, go
yeah. I'll
check
put
him
some
out.
links up, guys, and
That's how you honor him, you know.
yeah, yep. And you also honor him by finding an artist or someone that you like their work, and maybe they're not famous, and supporting them before they're like, guys. You could check out my buddy Soundtrap Sector 9 and Soul Coughing and all these, and before they were rocking, they were friends of mine, and Dave Dondero, and now, on Tribe Sector 9, good luck getting a ticket. They're still in out nights, but I just remember, sleeping on my floor, and have and whatever it is, whether it's a restaurant that is hot, you know what I mean? Whether it's a artist, a photographer, anything, just find someone and be brave enough to say these people are good before other people do it. I think that's pretty powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's a good thing.
Scott does it all the time. Scott did it to me.
You were already you were already the best.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, all right, man, I'll call you in a little bit. Thank you very much. And get a reading from Scott, sign up for my stuff, and make us, maybe we're the people that you think are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be us. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm, Lady Gaga. All right, man.
Bye.
See you. Bye.